Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Not a ghost or anything, but a little spoopy thing that happened to me as a kid. Got other stories. Shit like this happened a lot at the old place I lived at. Be me, 15. Live in an isolated house out in the middle of the woods. Me and friends explore the woods all the time. Know them pretty well. One night, I heard a weird, loud crack sound coming from the woods. Think maybe it's a tree collapsing? But it was weird. It was just one loud crack like a gunshot, but not quite. Whatever, write it off. Next day, go in a woods. Suddenly, in an area where we've been plenty of times before, there's this huge barrel? I say barrel, but it was like the size of a small house. Rusted, dented, had a hole in the side of it where we could climb in. Nothing particularly interesting inside. How the fuck did it get here? It was miles from any road. No markings in vegetation surrounding it to indicate it had been dragged there or anything. Slightly spooked by it at first. Eventually, spookiness wears off. We use it as a landmark. We have parties inside it, drinking, smoking, gets filled up with empties and cigarette butts. Graffiti the side of it, including, Anon Hearts Anon's first crush. One night, about 2 years later. Again, a loud crack sound. Go out to the barrel the next day. It's gone, along with everything inside it. Just a big patch of bare dirt where it had been. Again, nothing to show it had been dragged away. Kinda sad because the barrel had become a pretty cool hangout over the past couple years, but oh well. Here's to you, barrel bro, wherever you are. There's so many. This is the place where I grew up, and it wasn't until I moved away that I understood just how much weird shit happened to me when I was there. When I moved away and began experiencing normal life, that I began to understand just how odd that place was. Not all necessarily paranormal, either. A small non-paranormal story. In the middle of all this lush pine forest, there was this odd area that was entirely sand dunes. This isn't the only weird thing I saw happen there, either. Great place for sledding when it snows. Dad worked as an EE for a company that had a manufacturing site way out in the woods for some reason. Takes us to go sledding at the sand dunes. We get there, having a ball, sledding all over the place. Come across a pond that had never been there before. Pond isn't frozen over, and it is crystal fucking clear, no plant or animal growth or mud or anything. Except for one thing, the water is slightly blue. Dad sees this and gets angry as hell. Tell us to get in the car. We go home. He makes a phone call to work to scream at someone. Tells us not to go to the sand dunes until he tells us we can. Next time we go, the pond is gone. Another time, I was hiding in the woods at the edge of the sand dunes while watching black helicopters land there. Note that there was no nearby military base, or really any nearby anything. Or if you want something a little more weird, be about 12 years old. It's pouring rain outside, at nighttime. I had just gone out to get our dog out of his pen to bring him inside out of the rain. Because he was still a bit of a puppy and a spaz, he broke out to run into the woods. Grab a flashlight, go into the woods looking for him. Pretty deep in, I can hear him crashing around through the brush. Suddenly, to my left, hear some grunting noises. Almost like a pig, but more guttural. I freeze. Take a step towards the noise. Hear a loud thump as something flops through the brush. I'm kind of spooked, but I always felt safe when my dog was nearby. I figured if it was something really bad, he would have seen it and started barking at it when he tore through the woods. Plus I can still hear him crashing around the woods pretty close by, so I'm not too worried. Shine my light through the brush, push some branches aside. Holy shit. It's the biggest fucking toad I have ever seen. When I say big, I don't mean just like a normally big toad. I mean that this thing was easily bigger than a raccoon. Realize the grunting sound I heard earlier was its croak. Something's off about it. It's not just a supersized toad, it doesn't look quite like the other toads I had occasionally caught. Eyes are set much further back in its head, almost near its stomach, than normal. Of course I immediately want to try to catch it. Reach my hand out for it. Opens its mouth to ree at me. Realize what else is different about it. I know a lot of toads have small nubs of teeth. This one has an entire mouth full of thin, needle-like teeth. Fall backwards in shock. Toad hops away crashing through brush. Gather my dog. Tell family about huge fucking toad I saw. They just think I must have seen a really big normal toad. Ever since then, our house was plagued with toads every summer. Literally dozens of them hopping around the yard at any given time. There was lots of things that don't necessarily make for a good story. For example, one day me and my friends, all of us, experienced not a few minutes, not an hour or so, of déjà vu, an entire day that we all swore up and down had happened before. There was other weird stuff, too. Electronic appliances would turn themselves on pretty often, and one microwave we had curiously remained on even after unplugged. Then there were the people, like the old lady down the street who would always give us children's crayons drawings to deliver to her granddaughter at school. Later found out that her granddaughter had died in a car accident. No idea if she was making these drawings herself out of dementia or something. Or the time, as little kids, we found the humongous skull of some animal poking out of the ground. So big we all thought it was an elephant skull, not realizing elephants wouldn't be where we lived. Told our parents about it, and a week later it was just gone. There's one story. This was after our microwave wouldn't turn off even after unplugging. My mom was convinced our house was possessed or haunted. Dad just laughed and bought a new microwave. Mom insisted that an old abandoned house, passed by it on our way to school every morning, was a center of cult activity and was causing all this, said she had seen lights in the windows at night. So of course, me and my friends, 16 at the time, wanted to check it out, at night, because spooks. Go with two guys, Isaac and Richard. House as normal as we approach, a bit trashed, garbage on the lawn, old wrappers and empties and shit, figure someone must have been squatting. Front door is unlocked, just stroll inside. As soon as we enter the house, feeling hits us, all of us, at the same time. Something's fucked here, can't explain it. I just went from a sudden feeling of complete lack of worry to an intense, overwhelming feeling of dread. The inside of the house is weird. Large sheets of ripped blue plastic on the ground. Looked like they had been containers for something? Like something big, sealed in plastic, that you had to rip apart to get at. Picked one up to look for a label, no label, just a barcode and a serial number. Okay. Flip light switch, electricity is on for some reason. Head into the kitchen, devoid of anything. No cabinets, no nothing, no fridge, no sink, everything's been cleared out. Sawdust and metal shavings all over the ground. Shrug. Meanwhile, Isaac's getting jittery.
Alright man, we checked it out, let's get the fuck out of here.
Me and Richard tease him about being a pussy. Head upstairs. Lights up there aren't working, so we bust out flashlights. All pretty much normal up there, empty rooms, some abandoned furniture. All except for one room. One room that is lined with mirrors. Floor-length mirrors lining every wall. Mirror on the ceiling. Okay, maybe whoever moved out just hadn't bothered taking them. Richard is behind me, looking down the stairs. Suddenly gets deathly white, pushes me and Isaac into the mirror room. Before we can say anything he whispers,
"Shut the fuck up, someone just turned off the light downstairs."
Oh fuck. We all strain our ears listening. Richard is standing by the door, ready to jump whoever decides to walk in. Can't hear shit. About 20 minutes pass like this. About to suggest venturing downstairs. Suddenly, whole house shakes. Every light comes blazing on, even the ones upstairs, which hadn't been working. Isaac just barely stops himself from shouting out. I look out the window of the mirror room. There's no car parked in the front yard. Whoever came into the house, they'd have to try to chase us on foot. House shakes again. One of the light bulbs in the room pops. Glass falls down on me, it's burning fucking hot. Fuck it, time to run. All three of us stampede down the stairs. Basement door is open. It sounds like something's running down there, like a washing machine crossed with a lawnmower gone wild. As we dash past the door, we hear someone yell out.
Is someone there?
From the basement. Run into the woods. When we're about halfway back home, calm down a bit. Decide to stick together and drop Isaac off at his house first, then me, then Richard, since his house was the closest walk from mine. He'd spend less time walking alone. Call him to make sure he gets home fine, he does. Next day. The abandoned house is burned the fuck down. Ask parents about it. Dad says the fire department just used it for practice. Return to the empty lot a few days later. The basement had been filled with cement. I've also got some stories that are more personal, and sort of followed me for the entire time I grew up there. Sorry about last night, got wrapped up with something. Anyway, here's one. Summertime, freshman year. It's raining outside, so I'm inside playing vidya. Door opens. It's my dad. Little weird, he never usually comes home during the day, always busy at work. He looks at me with a weird expression on his face, like he's shocked to see me.
Anan?
Hey dad, what are you doing at home?
I took the day off from work. Do you want to go mini golfing when the rain clears up?
Sure dad. He goes to his room, I continue playing vidya. An hour or so later, the rain clears up. I get up to go fetch him. He's nowhere in the house. Look outside, his car isn't in the driveway. Figure work must have called him back in. Later that night, dad comes home. Ask him what was up with leaving that afternoon. Looks at me like I'm on drugs.
I never came home this afternoon.
Okay. Play it off. I must have dreamed it during a nap or something. And another. Had a cat when I was younger. Thing was an absolute ninja. Would find ways outside when all doors were closed. Find ways inside when all doors are closed. Find ways into the wall. For some reason dad never got it neutered like the other cats we had. Gets pregnant, 3 kittens. Absolutely adorable. One little tortoiseshell kitten really seems to like me, name her Spooky. Want to keep them, but dad says no, we have enough cats.
Don't worry, I'll bring them into work, people there will want them.
One night a few weeks after all kittens had been adopted. Wake up to a tiny mew in my room. Look to my right, it's Spooky on the floor of my room. How in the hell? As I'm watching her, she walks right through my fucking wall. What the fuck? I'm sitting there wondering if I just hallucinated this. As I'm looking at the wall, a man wearing a weird orange suit pokes his head through my wall. Only his face and upper body visible. Backs out like he doesn't even see me. I'm freaking the fuck out. Awake all night. In the morning I rationalized to myself it must have been a dream. However, for the next few months, every once in a while I'd hear a tiny little mew, and sometimes see Spooky, whether I was outside or in my room. Never again the guy in the orange suit, though.
This happened a hella long time ago, but it still creeps me out to this day. B12. Walking with a group of about 5 or so friends. We decided to go to the shops, so we walked through this shortcut that connects the western area of my town to the town center. Start to approach the town center, just about to cross over the train tracks. Suddenly, out of nowhere I see this kid who can't be any more than 7 years old to the right of us, about 30 meters away. He's dressed in full red attire, red polo shirt, red cargo type shorts, red sneakers. Dirty blonde hair, with a smug look on his face. I mention this kid to my friends and tell them to look, but no one else can see him besides me and this Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander guy we were with. One of my friends was colorblind, so I don't know if that affected his perception. Another was in a big rush to get over to the shops cause he was hungry, and another dude was on the phone from what I recall. Suddenly this kid starts waving frantically, like he's waving goodbye to someone, which is befitting considering we were right near a railway and an abandoned train station. I ask my friends again if they can see him, they still say no besides the one other guy I mentioned who could see him. Suddenly after about 10 to 15 seconds of waving, this kid does a 180 and runs towards the train station at full speed. And I'm not talking a fast-paced walk, this kid fucking sprinted like he was running away from something. I chase after him as he seems in trouble or is leading us somewhere. Aboriginal guy follows my lead, and the rest follow reluctantly whilst bemoaning that us two are just joking around about this kid running towards the train station. The kid runs into this little alcove that is at level with the railway underneath the train station. As we get in there we see that he's completely disappeared. This was the middle of the day so we could see just about everything inside this alcove. Start to think that we hallucinated the whole thing. Aboriginal guy crawls into this opening and notices a ladder leading up into this abandoned train station. The train station at the time was bolted and locked up due to being marked for demolition, so we assumed this was the only way to get in there. We all crawl in and one by one go up the ladder. Once we're all in we look around and try to see if the kid could have gotten out any other way. Everything's bolted shut, there's no other damage to the building, so there isn't any other crawl spaces to escape from. We started calling out to the kid, shouting names of kids that we knew from school that we thought resembled him. Other friends are starting to doubt me, even the Aboriginal guy is starting to doubt what he said he saw. We all leave. Fast forward about 12 years, now 24 years of age. Taking the rubbish bin, and for some odd reason, this experience pops back into my head, I look out to the curb where I'm to drop the bin off for garbage collection. This fucking kid, same red clothes, same look, hasn't aged a day, is standing on the opposite side of the road, waving.
First time posting a story here. Sorry if I don't exactly follow the conventions. Very normal, low-key childhood. Grew up in an area famous for its seclusion and scenery, named after an early 20th century famous painter who retired there. He painted vast landscapes that don't look very different from the current road except for literally a couple new houses. House is surrounded by thick forests, middle of a valley that's sandwiched between several more valleys that grow increasingly large. Always took in the woods, forest familiarity as normal and completely non-threatening. Always got cracked up by how people would react to coyote shrieks and owl hoots. Regularly walked by self in the general area around the house since 9 or 10, followed old skid trails and ridges that by all means I should have gotten lost on. Spookiest thing that ever happened to me was getting jump scared by a deer bursting out from behind a tree and scampering off, was never worried about walking alone. Hiking and just fucking around in the woods was my absolute favorite pastime. It only takes one night for this to completely change and give me severe panic attacks when alone in nature. Early December, I'm 12. 3:30-ish a.m. Mom wakes me up, tells me to follow her onto our porch. Lights are all off, she tells me to be quiet. Dead silence. She's clearly listening for something. We wait for 5 minutes, repeatedly hushes me. I'm getting worried she's having a hallucination or something. Goes back inside, she makes sure the door's locked like 5 times. Tells me she heard crying, she's convinced that it was a kid. I tell her she was probably dreaming. She's convinced it was real, tells me that it woke her up and lasted for the better part of a minute. She describes it in really freaky detail, can explain exactly how it sounded, a choking, terrified sob sort of sound. She immediately jumped to a lost kid. She explains that it was loud enough that she heard it through her closed door and window on the opposite end of the large house. Whatever, I didn't hear anything. Tells me that it came from the direction that my window, right over the head of my bed, points. Weirded out, but not fully convinced. Lock the window, go back to sleep. Mid-January, still 12. There are some really beautiful views from ridges overlooking some old clear cutting areas only a couple hours hiking behind our property. 12-year-old idiot me grabs a granola bar and decides to make a day out of it. On the way, notice some strange footprints. They're completely spherical, as if someone was pressing featureless balls maybe 10 inches in diameter over and over again. Strange little marks at the base of the indentation. Weird, but whatever. They're not exactly threatening, so I ignore them. 3 hours of fucking around later, I get back to the house. Mom's home. I ask her about the tracks just out of curiosity. She knows her shit on this stuff. Her dad has a wall full of hunting shit and she was always the kid that he took with her and who kept up with him the best. She's curious too, follows me out to where they start. After a couple minutes, she starts laughing. They're turkey tracks. The turkeys were sitting down because of the cold, and they managed to make perfect circular shapes. The little marks in the center were clearly normal tracks in a few of them. Start heading back, talking and laughing. She goes dead silent. I notice, ask what's going on. She just starts walking away from me, towards the side of a ridge I normally don't go towards.
Did you do this?
It's a fucking perfect human footprint. Tell her absolutely not, it's bigger than my foot anyway. I walked this exact way early today, this was not fucking here. It snowed last night too, and I was paying attention to every little change in the scenery. The turkey tracks had been very well hidden at the edge of a skid trail. This had to be done after I walked past it. My stomach is in knots. Absolutely zero question about it. It wasn't a spooky Bigfoot or anything like that, just a straight-up human footprint. You would be dead from frostbite if you were even wearing socks and pajamas outside the night before. Our pipes had almost froze again despite having both a wood stove and furnace working to heat them. It's not a single footprint, there's an entire trail. This just happened to be in clear sight while the others were hidden. The trail is sharply curved in a U-turn, stopping at this footprint and heading back in the same direction. It goes on forever. We walk alongside it for what feels like an hour. It stays close to where I was walking. This is a usual path for me. I'm getting really, genuinely freaked out. Looks like it was following me from a distance. She's getting scared. Anyone who walks barefoot this long is far, far beyond normal, obviously a danger. We both fucking stop dead in our tracks. A few feet ahead, coming up from a ravine and joining with the one we're following, is a new trail. It's a child's footprints. Fucking unquestionable once again. You can see every single toe in perfect detail. We are getting nervous as all hell. But continue on until we see another trail of slightly smaller footprints. There's 2 kids. There's 3 clearly distinguishable spots where snow was pushed, clawed away and someone or something laid down or did something that required contact with the frozen grass. We were probably just getting panicky, but we thought it looked fresh and rushed. We book it back to the house, arguing about if we should call the cops or Game and Fish, DNR, or whoever we would call for something like that. Finally decided that we shouldn't because technically it wasn't our property and my mom's really paranoid about trespassing. Brother got busted for it. All around really bad situation. Decide that we'll go out again tomorrow with dad and brother and see if we can find anything, and then decide if we need to call. That night, still terrified, alternating between fucking snow hobos and, oh my god, there are frozen corpses in the woods. It snows like crazy, near blizzard, just like the night before. 3:30-ish a.m. once again. Woken up by mom standing over me, poking my side. Outside my window, distant but audible, there's the unmistakable sound of a child sniffling and crying. Mom looks terrified. I only hear the last few seconds of it as it wanders into the woods. It's the exact fucking direction the tracks were in. After a few minutes of silence, we go out on the porch with dad and brother. Brother and dad both had to wake up around 4:30 a.m. for work, so I was the go-to if anything was wrong at night. This meant my mom was seriously afraid. Silence for a few minutes. We're about to go back inside. We're all eager to get back inside. Snow falling in the dark is somehow horrifying when combined with the sounds of the wind. I still remember how creepy it looked because of the almost full moon. We're constantly looking back to the other end of the porch in paranoia. Suddenly, across the way, in the same direction as the child crying, I hear the most god-awful noise of my entire life. I've never been able to find something even slightly comparable. The best I can explain it is an inhuman sound being made from a human body. It was a scream, and I'm almost certain that only an adult could make something with that much bass, but it didn't sound like any screaming I've ever heard come out of a human. It was almost closer to an ape shriek, but so much louder, deeper, and almost layered that to compare it to an animal really doesn't make sense. It wasn't one of those cheesy Bigfoot calls. No offense to people who get off to that stuff, but those always just sound like a chimpanzee scream being played in the woods via boombox. This was clearly living and something like a human. This thing goes on for 40 seconds at least, non-stop. It tears through the wind like it's 3 feet away. We're fucking paralyzed. Finally silence. We edge back to our door. It starts again, a little quieter. More of a shriek, only lasts a few seconds. It's on the opposite end of the property. We get inside, put the house on lockdown, get away from the windows. As we're debating if we need to call the cops, the fucking power goes out. Our phone, which we just fucking bought, is one of those pieces of shit that can't still be used with just telephone wires still working. Scariest fucking night of my life. Nothing happens, but needless to say we bought a new, non-shit phone in a couple days when the roads were cleared. For the few years I lived with my parents after that, I never really hiked by myself again. I tried a couple years later and got seriously terrified. Next time our uncle comes to visit, used to live on the road as well, big hiker. We talk about it and ask if he ever saw any footprints or anything like that in the area. Is visibly disturbed, has had similar experiences. Turns out there's been a few situations on the road over the past 30 years that could be the same thing. It sounds kind of shitty without any actual sightings of whatever the hell it was, but anyone who heard the noises I heard that night would never want to go in those woods again either. I had waking nightmares for ages of walking in the snow and seeing something, but I never remembered what it was when I woke up. Lots of freaky shit like that from my mom too. I'm not big into this kind of shit, but I really don't know what was up in that area or how it could be easily explained. I don't think I have time, but I'll try to write up some of my uncle's experiences. They were pretty fucked up too.
I've got a few stories to share, but I'm at work and on my cell phone, so I'll give you the gist of some. I grew up on a small secluded street smack dab in the middle of 3 cities. All of the original houses were hand-built by their original owners in the 40s or 50s. My house was number 1, my grandparents were next door, and next door to them was my best friend's place. My best friend's house was built by my grandfather, a German immigrant, and his friend, a high-ranking ex-Waffle officer in hiding. We knew him as Mr. Werner, but that wasn't his real name. I digress. Winter around 2002. Myself and my friend were riding our bicycles during a snowstorm because why not? Riding past Werner's old house. Friend's parents must be doing laundry because steam is coming from a dryer vent. Steam and snow start mixing in the wind. Takes the form of an old man wearing what looks like a southwester hat. Just standing there, staring at me. I promptly fell off of my bike and the guy was gone. Some years later. My friend's parents are renovating, landscaping. They dug up a concrete walkway around the edge of the house, which borders my grandparents' place. They find bones mixed in with the concrete. My grandfather helped to build the house, so he must know WTF this is. My friend and I went to see him. "Granddad, why are there bones in the concrete?" He just laughs at us and says,
"There aren't any bones in there."
And that was the end of it. the friend's brother found the box of bones and threw it in the trash because he thought it was garbage. Me again. Around 8 years old this time. Stressful time in my life, my parents were divorcing, shit was lit. Anyways. I frequently hear this groaning sound from the crawl space attic in our house. Only late at night, and I was the only one who ever heard it apparently. Freaked me out, so I went to sleep with Mom. Woke up around 2 to 3 a.m. in Mom's bed. Except I wasn't in Mom's bed. I was floating 5 feet above it. When I finally realized what was happening, I fell and bounced on the bed. Mom woke up and cursed me for jumping on the bed. I tried to explain to her what the fuck just took place, but she wasn't having it. I brought this up with her last year and she didn't remember it. And another. Around the same time frame as the last story. Between 7 and 8. I woke up around 1 a.m. in my room. Get out of bed, open my door, take a left and walk down a set of stairs, take another left and stand at the top of another set of stairs. Don't ask me why. At the bottom of these stairs are 2 doors, one on the right wall leading to a rec room, the other at the bottom of the stairs, which leads to our back door. I just stand at the top of these stairs for what feels like 30 seconds. The door on the right opens slowly. A light shines through the door and fills the area. An arm slowly protrudes from the doorway and beckons me to come closer. I think the most unsettling part of this was what the arm looked like. Imagine the wooden marionettes from the Robax commercials. I stand there for what feels like 15 minutes, watching this thing wave me over. I feel kind of nervous, but I'm more confused or mesmerized than anything. I hear a noise from the hallway above where the bedrooms are. Mom asks me what the fuck I'm doing up by myself at 7 in the morning. I look back down the stairs. Nothing is there and the door is closed.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.